wicked band that followed in our footsteps.
It's a very hard thing to puzzle out, myself, how these things happen, what combination of personalities and sounds that people, taste.
There are few guitarists in the annals of popular music whose tone is as immediately recognizable as David Gilmour's. Ethereal yet grounded, soaring yet intimate, Gilmour's playing has long been the emotional backbone of Pink Floyd's most ambitious works.
David, why guitar of all the instruments in the world?
It's easier than piano, keyboards, and to me, piano and guitar are the two main instruments where you can be everything. You can be a rhythm instrument, a bass instrument, a rhythmic instrument, or a rhythm instrument, a backing rhythm instrument, and a lead instrument all at once.
Whether it's the aching bends of Comfortably Numb or the crystalline phrasing of Shine on You Crazy Diamond, his guitar does not merely accompany the song, it often is the song.
Do you use a 12-string much? Once in a while.
Why? Why would you use a 12-string?
Well, just listen to that and you tell me.
I can see that.
And like all great artists, Gilmour's singular sound did not emerge fully formed. It was shaped, consciously and otherwise, by those who came before.
Always looking for a new sound, and being disorientated on an instrument often gives you a new inspiration.
In 2017, in a rare and illuminating gesture, Gilmour shared 5 albums with Guitar Tricks Insider that he considered essential listening for any aspiring guitarist. Presented without commentary, the list spoke volumes nonetheless. Here were the loadstars of a career that has spanned over 5 decades, each record offering a different facet of the musical mosaic that is David Gilmour. Now, with the benefit of hindsight and Gilmour's own scattered reflections over the years, we can piece together a picture of why these particular albums mattered, and why they still do. Before the psychedelic experimentation and philosophical grandeur of Pink Floyd, there was Hank Marvin. Gilmour's first love, musically speaking, was the clean, echo-laden sound of the Shadows, and particularly Marvin's red Fender Stratocaster, an object of such yearning that it would eventually become Gilmour's own instrument of choice.
My dream and ambition was to have a Fender, preferably a Stratocaster. I loved it from the beginning. Buddy Holly played one, Hank Marvin played one. That was enough for me. I just wanted a Strat.
The Greatest Hits collection by The Shadows, originally released in 1963, might seem an anachronistic inclusion to some, given the sheer magnitude of Gilmour's own work, but it was here that he first encountered the idea that melody could be king. Hank Marvin was the guitarist when I was growing up, Gilmour told Guitar World in 2006. He was the first person I ever heard make the electric guitar sing. What The Shadows did, with their breezy cinematic instrumentals like Apache and Wonderful Land, was introduce a generation of British teenagers to the notion that the guitar could be expressive without being aggressive.
Was Hank Marvin the first major British guitar player over there?
He was the first major electric sort of guitar hero for us Brits, yes.
There was restraint in Marvin's playing, a lyrical quality that would become a defining hallmark of Gilmour's own style. It's not about playing fast or being flashy. Gilmour has often insisted, it's about making every note count. If Hank Marvin gave Gilmour his melodic compass, it was Eric Clapton who pointed the way toward raw emotional expression. John Mayall's Blues Breakers, with Eric Clapton, more commonly known as the Beano album due to Clapton's casual pose on the cover, was a clarion call to a new generation of British bluesmen. Released in 1966, the album captured Clapton at the peak of his early powers. It was loud, muscular, and unapologetically reverent of the American blues tradition, filtered through a distinctly British lens. Clapton's tone, achieved with a Gibson Les Paul and a cranked Marshall amp, was thick and singing, a revelation at the time. I spent hours and hours trying to learn Clapton's solos from that album. Gilmour recalled in a 2015 interview with Relics, I wanted to get them exactly right. It was a rite of passage, and of course, in the process, I found my own voice. There is something beautifully ironic in the notion that copying Clapton led Gilmour to originality, but as he himself once said, don't be afraid to copy. Eventually, something that I suppose I would call my own appeared. What he found, in the crucible of mimicry, was that emotion could be communicated not just through licks or riffs, but through the feel behind the notes. That ethos would carry him through every Pink Floyd record, from Medal to The Division Bell. While Clapton laid the foundations and Marvin shaped the architecture, it was Jeff Beck who opened the windows to uncharted sonic landscapes. Beck's 1975 instrumental album, Blow by Blow, produced by George Martin, is a masterclass in technical innovation and tonal exploration. There is no singing on the record, but it doesn't need it. The guitar is the voice, crooning and growling and weeping across tracks like "'Cause We've Ended as Lovers" and "Freeway Jam." Jeff was the best of all of us, Gilmour said after Beck's death in 2023. No one could touch him when it came to making the guitar talk. What Beck demonstrated, more than anyone else, was that the guitar could transcend genre. He dipped into funk, jazz, blues and rock without ever losing his identity. For Gilmour, who would later incorporate synthesized textures and extended ambient passages into Pink Floyd's music, Beck's freewheeling approach was liberating. "Blow by Blow showed me that you don't have to be boxed in," Gilmour once said. "It's okay to let the guitar lead the way into unfamiliar territory." It is difficult not to hear echoes of Beck in tracks like Marooned, where Gilmour's guitar drifts over minimalist keyboards like a boat on open water. The notes are sparse, deliberate, and utterly absorbing. By the late 1970s, guitar music had bifurcated into extremes. On one side stood the punk revolution, rejecting technical proficiency in favor of raw immediacy. On the other, the increasingly baroque stylings of hard rock and metal. And then there was Mark Knopfler, walking calmly through the middle. Dire Straits' self-titled debut, released in 1978, was a revelation. Here was a guitarist who didn't use a pick, didn't lean on distortion, and yet managed to carve out one of the most distinctive guitar voices of the era. Gilmour took notice immediately. Mark brought back something that had gone astray, he told Guitar Player in 1985. He reminded people that phrasing and touch matter more than bombast. Sultans of Swing was the song that caught everyone's ear, but the entire album is a study in subtlety.
With the Sultans. With the Sultans.
Knopfler's fingerstyle playing, drenched in Fender clean tones, stood out precisely because it didn't try to stand out. There's a lot of ego in guitar playing, Gilmour has said, but what I admire about Knopfler is that he never lets the guitar get in the way of the song. That same sensibility underpins much of Gilmour's solo work. On tracks like The Blue or On an Island, he eschews technical display for emotional resonance. The notes arrive unhurried, almost conversational, as if to say, there's no need to shout when a whisper will do. No list of guitar heroes would be complete without Jimi Hendrix, and for Gilmour, he is less an influence than a revelation. I went to a club in South Kensington in 1966, Gilmour told the BBC in 2006. This kid got on stage with Brian Auger and the Trinity. He played the guitar upside down, and the whole place was in shock. The next day I went to record shops asking for Jimi Hendrix records, but he hadn't released anything yet. I had to wait. When Electric Ladyland finally dropped in 1968, it was more than worth the wait. The double album is Hendrix, at his most unrestrained, experimenting with structure, texture and studio effects in a way that seemed to tear up the rulebook for what a rock record could be. He was the greatest, Gilmour has said plainly. No one has come close. And yet Hendrix's influence on Gilmour is more spiritual than stylistic. Gilmour does not emulate Hendrix's furious attack or his relentless pyrotechnics. Rather, he channels the spirit of exploration, the idea that the guitar can be a vessel for something transcendent. There's a sort of fearlessness in Hendrix, Gilmour noted in an interview with Mojo. He wasn't afraid to go too far, to let things break apart and come back together. That philosophy is evident in Pink Floyd's more expansive works, from the sonic collages of echoes to the ambient interludes on the endless river. It's not imitation, it's inspiration.
And we thought, as there were these rather lovely pieces of music left over from those periods of time, that period of time, we would have another listen to it and see what sense it made, and it made a lot of sense. So here it is.
Taken together, these 5 albums form a kind of constellation, a map not only of Gilmour's tastes, but of his artistic evolution. From the melodicism of Hank Marvin to the raw expressiveness of Clapton, the audacity of Hendrix to the subtlety of Knopfler and the boundary pushing of Beck, each influence is discernible in his playing, and yet none defines him. It's all part of the process, Gilmour once told Rolling Stone. You listen, you copy, you absorb, and then, if you're lucky, you find something that's yours. His legacy is one of restraint, clarity, and emotional honesty, a rare combination in a genre so often defined by volume and velocity. And perhaps that is the ultimate lesson of these albums. They are not about showing off. They are about showing up, with vulnerability, with intention, and with an unwavering belief in the power of a single note to say what words cannot.
Anyway, you don't want to hear that old rubbish.
Yes. We do. Yes.